guess we can still do the Pledge of Allegiance, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, we sure can. I think that.
I mean, there's no reason not to.
Right.
So, everybody's here.
There he is. No,
We got a quorum.
We are live.
you can sit in the end chair if you don't trust
We
me.
are live.
Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. We have it's June 15th, 2020. We're here for a special meeting of the Natrona County Parks Advisory Board. And we'll start out with a roll call, please. We'll start over here.
Jim Miller?
Roy Buck.
Dave North.
Okay. We would, as we do all our meetings, we'll have everybody stand. Flags are on this side, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now this session, I believe we have one item on the agenda today. We have a presentation from WLC Worthington Lenhart, and we will have questions from the board for you following your presentation, and then we will entertain public comments. Public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person, and as always, we welcome any written comments from the public, and we will take all that information under advisement. You get that figured out? If you would give us your name and just a real brief introduction, if you would, please.
Sure. My name is Matt Williams with WLC. We were contracted by Natrona County to take a look at a reroute of a portion of the Bridle Trail. I believe Mike and I originally looked at this some time ago, like 2012. So there, and I apologize, I know Eric's seen these, but I'm not sure how many of you others have. But when Mike and I originally looked at this, we were just looking at the possibility to reroute a portion of it to get the traffic off the roadway around Mr. Christmas property. So the plan that we came up with is essentially, it follows the original alignment. Wasn't obviously very heavily used, but there's some remnants of a trail there. For the most part, it follows that old trail exactly until the southern end of it, which is almost, it's at that section line of Mr. Christmas property as well. And at that location, the trail kind of turned and went directly up the mountain. So at that location, to limit the steepness of it, we put some switchbacks and zigzags in there to try and manage those slopes a little bit better. And then it catches the existing trail, I guess, if you will, once we get up on that corner of Mr. Christmas property. Like I said, that was 2012. And then Mike reached out to WLC here last fallish and indicated that the county's intent was to move forward with it. And so at that time, we began preparing bid documents to put the project out to bid, essentially with the same design that we had in 2012. The alignment didn't change much. And I guess we did take a look at it again at that time to see if there was a better route up that hillside there that runs kind of north-south. And it's steep in certain areas no matter where we go. So, I mean, we left left it where we had it, following that old trail. So that's kind of the little bit of project history, how it came about, where we ended up. The project was advertised in March. No, I don't know. But a notice of award has been prepared and submitted to the commissioners, I believe, for their meeting tomorrow, the 16th. Yeah. With that said, be happy to answer any questions or address anything you guys.
Would you mind if I take a
Sure.
look at the map? I haven't had the opportunity to see that yet.
And this is a copy I sent the county attorney, so I just kind of, I'm sorry, Dave, identified there, that portion. I know an easement was being discussed with Mr. Chrisman, and that's kind of the, the area that still ends up on him.
So several questions that I have. One would be, what was your opinion of the general nature of the revision that would be done in that area as far as issues?
Well, like I mentioned, there are some areas that are pretty steep. And in those areas, the trail is on the side of the hill. For the majority of the trail is on the side running north-south. So it poses some challenges. Obviously, we didn't, put a drill rig in there to see what kind of issues we'd have with rock or anything like that. So I suspect when a contractor gets in there and starts scratching around, we may have some unforeseen things to address.
So
I think that
Go ahead.
in regards to accessibility and the route of everything, I believe it serves kind of the intent of what the trail systems, the hiking is supposed to be.
So in your meetings in 2012 with the Road and Bridge Director, and then subsequent meeting that you had, you said in March of this year?
I believe it was last fall when I originally visited with Mike, and he indicated the intent was to move forward with the project. And I put it off a little bit just due to the snow. I wanted to be able to stake the route so that contractors could go kind of take a look at it, see what they might foresee as challenges in there.
And as far as the direction that you were given, what did you see as far as, what was this trail, what was the purpose? What was it there to accomplish?
To move that pedestrian traffic off of Mr. Christmas property. I mean, to, skip I believe they would go up the side and then use the roadway to work around. And we wanted to provide a route where that pedestrian traffic is still utilize the trail system and not be directed up on the roadway around that property.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah, please.
So just a little bit of historical context. Last fall, I think it was probably around September-ish, because it was still pretty warm, Commissioner Kaufman, Commissioner Bertolio, and I went and walked this area of the Bridle Trail. And I think it was very apparent to us that in addition to some of the legal issues with easements across Mr. Christman's property, there was a need to re-engineer this part of the trail due to the steepness. I know there's some areas right now where there's some exposed water pipe, and I was going to maybe ask you to address how you're dealing with that. But I think the consensus at that point among the commission was that this needed to be re-engineered, not only to satisfy and resolve some of the legal issues, but as a safety issue for the public. So at the time, we were in between directors in the Parks Department, and so I talked to Mr. Hagler, and he indicated that back in 2012, there had been some work started on this. So the direction was given from the commission at that time to re-engage WLC to address, I think, a couple of things. One was the legal issues, but also to re-engineer it in a way that would maybe alleviate some of the steepness and provide better access to the general public. So just to give it some context.
Okay, and then one last question for me, and I'll turn it over to my cohorts here. So What do you foresee as far as any direction you were given as far as the type of traffic that would be allowed on that trail or would primarily use that trail?
It would be foot traffic.
Foot traffic?
Yeah.
And then the history of that trail being bridle, horses, et cetera, I mean, would that be would the trail be used for that also?
I guess it could be, yeah. I mean, the cross-section that we had proposed was a 3-foot wide path. I'm not a horse guy. I don't know, I guess, what a standard would be for that. But I would say to put a horse on that, you'd be more than satisfactory. I don't know. We didn't, just due to the steepness of it, I mean, we kind of had to start at point A and point B. We're literally, connecting the dots, trying to minimize those slopes in between. So, and I guess in that same vein, utilize as much of that same alignment or trail that was there was kind of what we were trying to do. I mean,
So the existing trail, what would happen to that?
It's just getting improved for the most part. We follow the existing trail right up to the south end where it just, I think it basically turned and went straight up the mountain. And then in that area, we have some switchbacks to make that a little bit more user-friendly.
And then the corners of the switchbacks, are they wider than 36 inches or 3 feet?
No, but the end of it is kind of extended out. I mean, on there, we've identified, I forget, it's a 5-foot passing zone or something of that nature, where we just kind of, there's some area right there at the corner to provide a little bit extra room.
Okay, I'll give up my soapbox here for a second. Go ahead.
Okay. Just looking at this, what is the slope in the upper portion of it, in the steeper portion of it? What's the slope of that, of the trail?
Are you talking longitudinally?
Yes. Rise per run.
It should be identified, Dave, on those planted profiles. Yeah, these numbers here are the slopes.
Okay.
Yep.
If I'm reading this right, it looks like you've got about 600 feet of
Yeah.
where it's going to be a little bit steeper terrain
Yeah.
than the rest of it, the lower
Yeah.
portion of it. Go ahead, Jim. I don't have any other questions at this point.
Mr. Chairman, you had asked the questions that I had, problems that I wanted answered, so I don't have any further questions at this point.
So I just have two quick questions. Were you on the project in 2012 as well?
Yeah.
So can you describe the difference, if any, between 2012 and what you saw when you were, again, retained to kind of work on redesign?
Not really. I mean, it was a little bit more overgrown, but in the sense that, I mean, that's not the primary route that that people are using at this time. I mean, there was nothing unexpected, I guess.
So
I mean,
not a lot more erosion or anything?
No.
Just was curious.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think I saw maybe a potential schedule, if this moves forward, where it would be complete in September this year. Is that right?
Yes, that's the current contract deadline. So I wouldn't anticipate it taking that long once we get a contractor in there, but that's the timeframe that of course we've given them within the agreement.
And just a quick follow-up. So where is traffic rerouted if that project moves forward for the summer? Like, we're not shutting the Bridle Trail.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's, I hate to say it, but I would assume that it probably would continue to use what they're doing right now.
Okay,
But that's a good point, yes.
okay, just curious. Thank you.
So then I had two additional questions. As far as the work done, and I understand what you said as far as they'll pretty much have to work with what they find. The contractor will have to work with what they find, but What do you see as far as disruption in that area for the actual construction of this trail?
I expect it to be pretty minimal, honestly. Honestly, I would expect the contractor to probably approach the county in regards to getting access off of the roadway on the top, so they don't have to cross the creek there from Rotary Park. But during construction, I suspect it will be a very small piece of equipment sitting in there, building the trail. And then we have some base course going down. No, it'll have to be something small. I mean, bringing that material in, but I suppose like any construction, yeah, there's going to be some disruption and some, it'll be a little bit of a pain.
That's all I had. Anything? Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think probably more comments than questions, so just a couple of other additional details. I just was speaking with our Parks Director, and it looks like some of the federal guidelines with regard to trail width necessary for equine and pedestrian usage is like 2 to 3 feet. So I believe that based on what we have engineered, it would accommodate both horse and foot traffic. And I'll let Tim speak more to that if you have follow-up questions. But just to kind of give a little bit more context, so that where this reconstruction will start is within what I would term Rotary Park proper. That's the parcel that is owned by the county and co-managed with Rotary Park. And then it would require a small easement, I believe, on the southeast corner of Mr. Chrisman's property. Our discussions, I believe, have led us to the point that that would be acceptable to him. Certainly when this is done, then access to the current path and down the roadway in front of Mr. Chrisman's property would be cut off, as well as on the west side to reroute traffic around the southeast corner of his property and onto the re-engineered trail. So I think it really, I think from my perspective, from a legal perspective, this is a win-win. It really resolves some of the access issues that have remained unresolved for probably decades. In addition, I think that it does make it more accessible. I think just from a lay perspective, when we walked it on that slope, I think that there's been some other trails that people have just been kind of carving out on their own. We did see some erosion on that side, and so I think based on what I've reviewed in the drawings, hopefully this would provide a cleaner path for the public to use and would limit some of the degradation of the park in that area. So from my perspective, I'm certainly in support of it. This resolves a lot of issues for me.
So as far as the easements go, how does this affect, then I get what you're saying as far as reducing the amount of easement that we have on Mr. Christmas property. Overall, how does this affect the easements that we have concerning the bridle trail proper?
So, Mr. Chairman, Parks Board, so currently there's no recorded easement, no express easement across Mr. Christmas property, and I think this has been a topic of debate for some time as to whether there's any kind of historical easement. There's been some talk of a prescriptive easement or going back to somehow legally claim an easement across the current trail, but I think what you just heard from our engineer is that this redesign follows what the historical trail is, and so I think from that sense, I think what it gives us is if Mr. Chrisman's willing, it gives us an express easement, and the rest of the trail then would be on county-owned property, so there would be clear legal right to that ingress and egress across that portion of the land. And so I'm not, from my position, I don't think that we're really giving anything up. I think it's just adding clarity. It's protecting the public's right to access, as well as protecting the private property rights of the neighboring landowners. So again, I think it's a win-win situation.
Is there the potential that we could end up in a protracted discussion about that small section of easement that crosses Mr. Christmas property?
I don't believe so, but I see Mr. Chrisman in the audience, and so I'm sure he can address that. But that would be necessary, I think, to effectuate the engineered intent. But I feel very confident, based on our prior discussions, that we'll be able to get this resolved in fairly short order.
Okay, hopefully we'll be able to hear from Mr. Chrisman. So, any other questions from the board? Ms. Kaufman? Okay, thank you, sir. And I appreciate it. We may ask you to come back up, and depending on the questions that we get from public comment.
Yep, no.
So I think we'll go ahead and move to the public comment period. Just as a reminder, I'll just give you the high sign. We will be obviously keeping within the 3-minute time period for discussion points. And I just want to reiterate that any written comments that you have, we will collect those, or you can submit them either to us or to Michelle. And what would you think would be the best way to collect like written comments? So we can go through parks. You can submit them here in the Board of County Commission office. So there's several ways that you can get written comments in if you desired that. So having said that, who's first? And please, when you come up, go ahead and state your name and address. Good to see you.
Thank you. My name is Howard Chrisman, and my property is what we're talking about. I really appreciate everybody coming on extremely short notice. I understand all of that. But as Eric and I had talked, and I appreciate his involvement, especially Brooke, David's been up to my property several times. I was hoping that we'd have a video up there, that we'd be able to show the map where everything is at. And that takes away a little bit of the presentation, based on the fact that a lot of people don't know where my land is. They don't know what we're talking about as far as easements. And they don't know where the road is, where they go. I don't know. Roy, have you been to my property and crossed that? Jim? Okay. That's the main thing. I know Brooke has, and Eric. So my issue is that I'm glad that I've had good conversation with the county commissioners in the past, although it's lingered on for thousands of years. And being a little sarcastic, but I am really, as Eric knows, he took the blunt end of it. Really tired of nobody making a decision is what it amounts to. And I think I've been fair. I've been a man of my word. I told them several years ago, in fact in 2012, I would leave the trail open, provided they proceeded with fixing the trail so that it skirted around my property. Right now, everybody that goes through there they're trespassing on my property. I talked to many of them, probably 15 of them, 20 of them a day. There's an average of 57 people a day go by my property.
Really?
Yeah. The positive is that most of them, their dogs are at least on a leash. We've got that through their head.
1 minute.
Huh?
1 minute, sir. Sorry.
1 minute. And I didn't come here for 1 minute. But anyway, what I'm not sure about with Matt's deal was that we'd be able to finish it in September. I'm more than willing to leave it open, Roy, I'm sorry. I'm more than willing to leave my property open while all this construction is going on, because I don't want to, adversely affect the people that are wanting to hike, okay? One more or a couple more months is no big deal to me, provided we have a commitment to resolve it. The other issue was that I don't know what the next step is. Is this the final process? You make the recommendation, as I understand it, to the county commissioners, and then they will decide. How long is that going to take?
I believe that process is going to be very quick. That's the reason that we put this special meeting together today, was to expedite that process.
Okay.
And Commissioner Kaufman or Eric? can-
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it is on the agenda for tomorrow evening's BOCC meeting. So we will have this meeting today, and then tomorrow the commissioners will consider approval of the contract to the construction company to start the work. So
Okay, and we have a construction company already awarded the bid?
that's right, Mr. Chairman, if I might. So from a procedural standpoint, the re-engineering has been done. There was an RFP let. We did receive bids. There is a recommendation from the Parks Department on a particular contractor, and that will be up for consideration tomorrow in front of the county commissioners.
Okay. I've already told Eric and Brooke that I'm more than happy to, any equipment that's needed to go up on the corner of my property, provided it doesn't block my driveway. I don't have any problem with the construction people coming up there and using that area. They'll have to refix the fence. You know, if they tear down the fence, they'll have to fix it. You know, that's what I'm asking. It's only a barbed wire fence. I prefer it wasn't a barbed wire fence. When they fix it, it's just, you know, something, so nobody's going to get hurt. So the contractor so tomorrow, when we have the county commissioners meeting, that will be the end resolve of all of this, I assume then, Roy, and Jim, that we'll be able to say that this is going to proceed, this is going to finish for sure this year, and I'm going to be done with it, hopefully.
That is our hope also.
Okay. We talked about protracted easement on the southeast side of my property. That being, you know, am I going to back up on my word? Right?
That's not what I meant. Honestly, I have not talked to you about this particular project, and I honestly didn't know where you stood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that hurts my feelings a little bit.
No, and that was, there was
Because
no intent
I've been
at
a
all.
person of my word for over 11
And
years
there-
on
that
this
was
deal.
not my intention at all to suggest that. I just simply did not know where you stood on this project.
Okay, well, let me clarify that. I got no problem. I'm not going to back up on anything. I give you my word, it's a done deal.
Perfect. I know that. I know
Okay.
that, so.
Okay, that's
you.
all I have then.
And I apologize if I,
No, you don't need to
Made that-
apologize. I just wanted to clarify it.
absolutely.
Okay?
Howard, we appreciate you coming forward.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions from me?
I think that you're the one that is the most affected by this, so we really wanted to hear from you, and I thank you for your time here. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Appreciate the time.
Next. Don't be shy. Ladies first.
I'm Kathy Toops. You've met me before. I just want to thank Eric. As soon as Eric showed up and Mike Hagler showed up, things started moving forward. And all that we really strongly feel is that we want private property rights respected. And I found that 48% of Wyoming is federal public land, and the state owns almost another 6%. So there's a lot of private property or public property out there. And all of our property taxes went up this year, mine doubled. And so I'm just really wanting respect for our private property rights, that's all. But I really want to thank Eric, I really want to thank Mike. Those two have been golden through this whole thing, because we bought the property from my parents in 2010. We paid 3 times as much as we did for our first house. And we've been fighting this nonstop ever since. But as soon as they got in, it was awesome. So,
Thank you.
yeah, any
Thank you.
questions? No. Thank you.
Douglas Irvin, 6835 South Rotary Park Road. I'd like to thank Eric and Tim and the board and the county commissioners for finally getting this to we think it will be resolved this year state. This has been impacting Mr. Chrisman for an entirely too long period of time and has not allowed the community to have an established legal right to this portion of the bridle trail. I'm really excited for us to move forward towards that goal, and it looks like everything's in line. And my only follow-up question would be are we also looking at finalizing an easement with the majority of the upper section with Michael Reed this year? As that would complete public legal access for the rest of the loop, and that's another item that I think we should prioritize to finally put to bed the public legal access to the entire trail.
I can tell you that priorities have shifted because of the entire COVID thing has disrupted the operations in large parts in the county management, but that is still a priority. So, and I don't know if, Eric, if you want to add anything to that, but I can't give you a timeline, but it's there. We want it done.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I had spoken with Mr. Reed, I think, maybe it was February or March, and we had those exact discussions, and then COVID hit middle of March, and so up until about 2 weeks ago, I think 90% of my time was COVID related. So we're just now getting back to kind of our normal workflow, and that is something that we still intend to address. And it'd be great if we could get that done this year, but I just got to reach back out to him and get that started again, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Eric Ani, 1028 South Beach Street. I guess, first of all, I feel like it's disingenuous to approach this as a private property rights issue. As we've talked about this before, we know that the WPA project required the county to provide rights of way for these projects before being started. And I think we can also very easily see where the project was, where it was done, right? So it's not very hard to look and say, oh, they built it here, and the county was responsible for providing those rights of way. So I think I think this is actually degrading the notion of private property rights. So I'll start there. Secondly, giving up something with the trail going up the side of the canyon wall. We give up access in the winter. There is no access during the winter time if the trail goes exclusively up that side of the hill. Drifting, that sort of stuff. It's done. It's over with. So there are definitely some real issues with the alignment, the initial alignment, and I don't want to. It's poor. So erosion is a major issue with that original alignment of the new pathway, and following that alignment would be foolhardy. I also build trail. I'm a frequent visitor of trail systems. Trails are not roads. Trails are not pathways. Trails are a different thing. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry.
I'm listening.
Oh, so grade reversals, steps. Horses cannot negotiate or navigate steps. This thing fell apart in very short order. The bridle trail built 90 years ago has surprisingly been without all the social and the cutting, has been very it's been very capable of maintaining itself because of the grades and the construction techniques they used. They didn't really have the grade reversal program, in check at that time, but based on the substrate and the drainage and the soils and the way they align it, it has held up very well considering. So I think it's disingenuous to say, first of all, rerouting in alignment with the way it is right now is a good idea. It's not a good idea. Basically, eliminating winter use of the bridle trail comes with this alignment, and then presenting this as a private property rights issue. It's actually a public access issue. So that's all I've got.
I had one question, Eric. So you have some history with trail building and maintenance. What is your opinion as far as long-term maintenance on this new proposed section of trail?
Long-term maintenance?
Yeah.
It better be built well. It's tough, area to build a trail in. So it's not something you just slap together and do it cheap. As you can see, all those steps fell down, rebar exposed, too steep of grade. Typically, you're gonna go less than 5% on a recreational trail. And you can go
5%.
upwards of that in short stints. Grade reversals are wildly important, both for the user enjoyment of the user, as well as the long-term sustainability of that trail. So if we're not building this trail with some sort of American Trails and/or International Mountain Bike Association or Forest Service standards, we're doing the wrong thing.
Thank you. Appreciate it, thank you.
Can I ask Eric one question? If
Please.
the bicycles are not allowed on the trail currently, why is it an issue as far as what the trail looks like or how steep it is?
Well, I think what we're talking about is the sustainability of the trail, because the grade affects the runoff down the trail, which affects the long-term sustainability of the trail. If it's not built to certain specifications, it will erode, and we're seeing that all over the Bridle Trail.
And I agree, and that's, well, Eric and I have met each other on the west side of my property. That's all erosion coming down the hill. And that's what I'm concerned about. I lose half of my road every year, you know, a great deal of my road because of just, well, if you've been up there lately, I haven't seen you, but if you've been up there lately, you see how my road is.
We were gone last night.
Oh, okay.
So-
You see how it's deteriorated so badly, and I have to fix that every year. And everybody says, well, it's a county road. If it's a county road, I want it maintained then.
So again, let's be clear. So IMBA standards are very similar, are the same standards actually as American Hiking Association or Society or whatever it is, as well as the Forest Service. These are all the same. They do the same thing, right? And so there's no argument here. Anybody can argue that if we're talking about bikes versus walking, there's no doubt that the hikers are causing the damage to the bridle trail. That is irrefutable. So I'll just get that out of the way right now. But he's absolutely right. The management has been poor as far as managing the trail. We've not had any management from the county as far as making sure the trail people are staying on the trail and the trail is kept in good condition. There are pretty easy ways to deal with that, but they've been rejected or ignored.
Yeah, and I take your point, but unfortunately, that's beyond the scope of the meeting that we have today.
Sure.
But I hear you, and we understand that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right, you bet.
Mary Peterson, 743 East Fifth Street. I own mountain property adjacent to the trail, and I've been a trail user on the Bridle Trail for over 50 years. And it's a wonderful asset for our community, but it has been a real disservice to the trail users and to the property owners in the way that the county has been managing it or mismanaging it for these years. By the current rules and regulations, bicycles are not allowed on the trail because they meet the definition of a vehicle, and vehicles are prohibited. But the bicyclists don't know that. It hasn't been posted and it hasn't been enforced. People have been allowed to transfer or to trespass on private property, and it hasn't been encouraged and hasn't been enforced, and it's been a disservice to the landowner certainly and the users. So I'm eager to have this win-win situation passed. I thank you for your attention. It's been a long time coming, and I hope that you will support this, and I also hope that the county commissioners will support it as well. So thank you all for your time, and let's try very hard to put this to rest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'd like to take 3 minutes of somebody's time.
Come on up.
The only thing I wanted to say is a positive note on the Parks Board group, everybody that's here, especially Mike Hegler, who's worked with me on this the entire time for 11, 12 years.
Here when we first started working.
Yeah. And so I just want you to know a little bit of the history and the frustration, okay? And my accentuating the timeline that things get done. Never in the past would anybody listen. And every time somebody made a promise, whether it was out of the Parks Group or it was out of the county commissioners, they never followed through, and it was deferred to another year and another year. So I think I've been very patient, and I want to make sure that this goes through this time, because I'm getting real grumpy about that. But I wanted to congratulate you guys for doing a great job to listen and to accommodate everybody that lives on the mountain, all these people, whether it's Kathy Toops has been with me the whole time, Mary Peterson, Tracy Lamont, Kathy Ide and Bob. We appreciate that somebody is finally listening to us and making the same decisions, because I can guarantee you, if you were in our position, it'd be a whole different story. There's a lot of people in the past 10 years, county commissioners, if their property was being crossed, I can tell you what, there'd be a hell to pay. We all know that. So thank you very much for being exceptional.
Howard, I want to thank you for allowing that trail to be bypassed for as long as it has been. I don't know how many private property owners would allow that. I know as a property owner, I would have issues with that personally. I do agree 100% that we need to protect the rights that we have, and I commend you for working with Mike and Eric and everybody else that has been involved in this to come up with a solution. Everybody's not going to be happy with every solution that comes up, and it doesn't matter what it is, but I do appreciate you working with us and taking this time, and being patient. Up to this point, 12 years is a long time to wait to get something accomplished, and we do appreciate that.
Well, I'm from Casper, so it's, I don't want to be the bad guy. I want to be the good guy to the public, and I want them to understand. And I talk to by far the majority of the people. So it's a plus. Now, my neighbors aren't so much in love with me because they want it stopped. And unfortunately, a lot of them can't be here, but they want me just to block it off. Well, I just can't do that in good faith. We got enough problems in this world. We don't need to have that sort of thing.
Well, and I've made this statement a couple of times, and I think this is a good time to reiterate that I feel very positive about the group that is coming together to work on not just this issue, because obviously our purview is the mountain, the lakes, the county. So this is just one section, but it's important because this is something that people see when they come to visit Natrona County. This is a gem that we have, and we're not treating it that way. So I hear you 100%, but I feel that we are getting a group together. It's a wave, takes time to build up, but I feel very positive about where this is going as far as the future of not just this, but all recreation activities that we deal with in the county. So I thank you for being a part of that and a positive part of that. And I want to echo Dave as far as thank you for your patience.
Well, I believe it's, and I've talked to Eric and Brooke about it, Dave about it in the past, Mike, it's precedent setting right now. This no trespassing thing is a precedenting situation. And we have to realize that it's not just precedenting for Natrona County, it's precedent setting for the entire state. So, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Tracy Lamont, 9855 Crimson Dawn Road. I'm confused. I got to get this straight, Roy, before we leave here. So we're addressing Howard's problem today, right?
We're addressing a reroute of a section of the
Bridle Trail.
Yes.
So on up the road where we've had controversy with, and I'll keep this under 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay? And I'm still going to ask my question that I asked you the last time, because that's where the confusion is here, okay?
Okay.
Is we have the Reeds, we have Kathy Tubes, and we have Mary Peterson. And out of those three, two of them are here today. So where do we stand? I heard part of that. Some of this has been put on hold, but this takes care of one little tiny sliver of the bridle trail, and all this grandiose confusion still laying out there on usage. So I tried to help you when I asked that question about what constitutes the lower section of the bridle trail, and the middle section of the bridle trail, and the upper section of the bridle trail. And in the spirit of working with one another, I heard Mary loud and clear. I heard Kathy loud and clear today. There might be a spirit of cooperation we've got going because of getting our act together here, okay? I know there's some visions of some people wanting that trail to go all the way to Hogadon. And I still haven't walked it. That's why I suggested a tour. That was the last time we were here before we all had to get tied up in the COVID mess here. But, we're talking about the bridle trail. The press is here today. Well, we're talking about a tiny sliver. We're not talking about the whole darn bridle trail. As it's defined in some people's minds, it's confusing. In all the years I've been up there since 1958 running around, I still don't know where the entire trail is, and shame on me, but I'm going to walk it one of these days on them. So can we define where we're going? We're still out in here floating around in thin air with the Tubes, with the Petersons, and the Reeds on any type of property easements on their property, right?
Yeah, that's all in the works. As we discussed earlier, the past 2 months have really kind of derailed a lot of planning and projects going forward, but that is a priority for not only this board, this advisory board, but for the county commission. And
so technically, it's not open season for trespassing across those people's properties then, right?
no
Those
more than
three.
I would anytime.
Okay, so we need to make that clear.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lamont, so I'm happy offline, we can set a time and I can sit down with a map and explain it to you. I would just say with Mrs. Peterson and Mrs. Toops, I don't think there's any part of the bridle trail we believe goes across their property. With regard to Mr. Reed, I mean, he is willing to allow continued usage, but there's some cleanup that needs to be done in terms of realignment of proper easement. So that's really what we're working on. But it is confusing. I mean, I know there's some talk of connecting into Hogadon, and frankly, I think in the future, I mean, there's a piece of BLM land, there's one private property, and so that could be something that we work on to negotiate connecting, but that currently does not exist. So Tracy, at some time now that we're open back up and we're not all hunkered down and self-quarantining, I'd be happy to sit down with a map and kind of explain how I see it to you, and so that we can clear up that confusion.
But as far as today's meeting goes, actually, all we're considering today is that one little tiny sliver.
That was my next question, because Tim put out a quick notice and did a good job on it, and you got a lot of people here today. So just a couple of issues that are still outstanding, obviously, is the shelter at Ponderosa,
Yeah, and
the
that's-
well issue, and we're not going to talk about that today. And the most important one is the trail center lodge. We can't let that get torn down. We need to fix it.
That all needs to be considered.
And we'll do that.
in
So,
time.
and I told you I'd be done under 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank
And
you.
as Tracy goes sit down, you can stay right there so I can answer this question. One of the other things that we're going to be committed to do, it's going to take us a little time, is one, improve the signage on the trail itself so it helps to clarify better what the trail areas are, as well as working with our GIS team to make sure that we get a good digital map so people can even pull it up on their phones or on the website before they go hiking. That'll help them. But that too has been in the works to do, but COVID has slowed that down a little bit. But we're planning on getting back on track with that.
So, thank you, Tracy.
You betcha. I think Tracy Good's a little better looking than you are, though, Tim, according to that name tag.
Next. Going once? Going, yeah, come on up.
I have a question that is not really related to the meeting.
Yeah, I can't guarantee we'll answer, but go ahead.
Okay, well, my name is Kat, and I don't own property up there, but I'm up there probably 4 or 5 times a week. So I do the bridle trail all the time, winter and summer. Who's responsible for, putting the logs across so people don't get off the trail? I mean, there are trails that go, all over the place up there, and some logs have been put, so people don't get off the trail. But is that the county? Is that?
Are you talking about which section of trail, what area?
Well,
are you talking?
the whole trail. I mean, there's little trails that go off that you can tell. And I've moved back, I'm from Casper. I
Right.
moved back 4 years ago to take care of my dad. And in the 4 years that I've been back, the erosion is just tremendous.
Yeah, and I would just say as a general statement, the trails, some belong to different groups, like the Rotary Park that we're discussing today is maintained by a group, Rotary Park and Friends of the Bridle Trail,
Okay,
along with, in the past, the Central Wyoming Trails Alliance. And then trails in the upper section of the mountain are maintained primarily by the county, parks, or county employees of the county, and volunteers with the Central Wyoming Trails Alliance.
okay.
And then there are we have some people that are just kind of operating outside the system that are doing things too. But
Yeah.
our goal as a Parks Board is to make that a very black and white system as far as trail maintenance, management, building, all of that going forward
And
would
the
be
the signage with the arrows.
managed. That's all in the works. We're
Okay.
in a process of just building the foundation for that right now, and then going forward over the next couple of years, I think you'll see some big improvements in that.
If I can answer that further, one of the things that I've been noticing just in a couple of months here is we have been going up there looking, and I know that with WLC that as even part of this project, it's going to be recognizing where the term volunteer trails have been put. And there's been a lot of volunteer trails where people just decide to skirt the other trail and make their own.
Right.
And after a period of time, those volunteer trails become more recognized as, you know what, everybody's walking that way, let's go. So what we have to do is recognize where we need to do some mitigation, and that's going to take some time. And just like he said, it's going to be working with the Wyoming Trails Alliance and other volunteers, because from a park staff, it's very difficult for us to do with the current staff we have, and we're going to need to rely on volunteers to make this work.
And does anybody patrol down, where you come in and park? And the little campsite, the day sites with the picnic tables? Does anybody?
They do,
from
but like everybody, we don't have enough the funding to have as much help as we would
Okay.
like. But yeah.
I
so
see a
it's-
lot of stuff up there.
Yep.
That shouldn't be
And-
going
and
on.
we do too. Like I said, I think, just, just hold that thought, because you will see improvements over the next year or two, so.
About a month and a half ago, there was a camper and a truck from California that was there. I mean, I left right around dark and it was there. I came back at probably 6 in the morning to do the trail.
Yeah,
It was still there.
We get
It was still there.
anecdotal information all the time, so we
Okay.
are working on it.
Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
what I wanted to, thank you.
Next. Okay, going once, going twice. Do we have any board comments or questions that have come up? Dave, we'll start with you.
Like I said, I just want to reiterate that, thank you, Howard, for being patient for 12 years. That's a long time for anybody. My patience isn't that long. And I appreciate everything that's been done by Eric and Mike and everybody else that's been involved in getting this taken care of. I know that you can't please everybody all the time, but we need to do what's right for the people that own the property adjacent to it, as well as making this as beneficial to a lot of people as we can, so that they do have access. Winter use is always going to be an issue on the bridle trail. It's not, I don't think it was ever designed for very much winter use anyway, so we've addressed that in the past in some of the other meetings that we've had and talked about that because of the access issues. But I do think this is going to be a good solution for everybody. I do appreciate your patience while this is getting taken care of and rerouted, and to mitigate the issues that are associated with private property, and we'll move forward from there. So,
Yeah, Howard, I'd like to thank you for the many meetings that you've attended to try to get this thing straightened up, and your patience has been overwhelming. Thank you. Thank you for the public for showing up today, and we just want to move forward and make this gym that everyone can enjoy.
So did, Commissioner Kaufman, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. So I guess, do we want to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commission?
I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to move forward.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to forward a recommendation to approve the plan as presented by WLC. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. That recommendation, that motion passes. We will make a recommendation to the Board of County Commission to approve the trail renovation as proposed. And thank you very much. And do we have any other business? I didn't see anything else on the agenda, so. Any additional board comments?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn.